the Iranian regime, its proxy Hezbollah. Talk about what they're doing in Syria right now, in particular close to Israel's borders.
Well, in a way, there's a certain irony to this because, for many years, the Syrian regime, back in the days of Hafez Assad, Bashar's father, used to like to use the Lebanon-Israel border as a kind of proxy for attacks on Israel. He'd keep the Israel-Syrian border very quiet because he feared Israeli retribution, but he'd try and hit Israel through the Israel-Lebanon border. In a certain strange way, Hezbollah and its Iranian patron are now trying to do precisely the same thing in the opposite direction. They want to keep the Israel-Lebanon border quiet because they fear Israeli retribution, but they would like to create a different platform for attacks on Israel from southwest Syria, from the area just east of Quneitra Crossing of the Golan Heights. And they've been trying hard to establish that platform in the course of the last 3 years. Israel has been determined to prevent that. Up until now, this has been a kind of quiet, little remarked upon success for Israeli efforts to keep those guys well away from the border. And there have been a few kinetic actions where Iranian generals and also one significant figure, Jihad Mughniya, son of Imad Mughniya, the main Hezbollah terror mastermind, was killed up there. All part of that effort to interdict the Iranian and Hezbollah attempt to create a new platform for attacks on Israel.
They want to create something, I guess, Jonathan, similar to what they have in southern Lebanon with Hezbollah. Now, that Golan incursion of the Iranian regime of Hezbollah, it seems like that's a complete red line for Israel. They will not allow the Iranian regime to cross. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely so. I mean, it's clear from an Israeli point of view, Israel doesn't want to get involved in the Syrian civil war. Israel does not think that it has a dog in the fight, so to speak, in a fight between Shia jihadis and Sunni jihadis. But at the same time, there are certain core security interests that Israel is determined to defend and to maintain. One of those is making sure the Iranians and their friends don't get to create a new springboard for attacks on Israel just east of Quneitra.
Jonathan, there's another major wild card with all the various players in Syria right now. Syria is such a cauldron, obviously. There's another major player that's thrown its hat in the ring, a nuclear-armed player. How does Russia change the dynamic in Syria, and it's tough to kind of peg what it means for Israel, I guess, Russia's involvement there. What's your take on it?
Well, what it means for Syria, certainly, is that the regime has been enormously strengthened by the Russian intervention. And we're noting in recent weeks, and indeed in recent days, that Assad's forces with Hezbollah, with the Iranians, with Shia militias from elsewhere, are currently barreling eastward up there in northwest Syria, taking holdings that the Syrian rebels have held for the best part of the last 3 years. And what's enabling them to do that, in 3 days now, which they couldn't do in 3 years, of course, is the factor of Russian air support, against which the rebels simply have nothing to put, into the arena. Now, what does that mean from an Israeli point of view? Look, Israel is not an enemy state for Russia. Israel has decent relations with the Russians, been careful to maintain those kind of precisely for a moment like this. As of now, it appears Israel has still been able to act far afield in Syria to defend its interests, in spite of the Russian involvement. But there's kind of a moment where we really have to ask a question about this. If the Russian intention is to allow Assad to reconquer the entirety of Syria, and if that presumably also includes southwest Syria, up to the border with the Golan Heights, then what does Israel do at that point? If Assad is acting against the rebels down in southwest Syria with Russian air support and defeating them and getting close to the Golan, that raises a real question for Israel. So that may well be a question which is going to be asked in the months ahead. We're not sure yet. It may not reach that point. If it does, it's a serious issue.
Yeah, it's amazing. Russia basically saved Assad's hide. He was on the ropes, as you've reported many times, Jonathan. And that question, if, God forbid, hostilities break out again between Israel and Hezbollah, what does Russia do? They're aligned with Hezbollah in many ways right now in Syria. Why should Americans care about what we're talking about right now?
At the end of the day, if there isn't order of some kind in the Middle East, that's going to come back to bite Western populations too. Tragically, we've seen that also in San Bernardino in America just last year. We've seen it elsewhere in Europe as well. End of the day, disorder and civil war and breakdown and fragmentation don't stay confined to one part of the world. And the way that America can help to defeat those forces is through aligning with the many forces in the Middle East, and Israel, I think, chief among them, who want to be allies with America. But America has to kind of be in the field, so to speak, to enable that to take place. There's been a sense in recent years of a certain vacuum because the US has preferred to keep out. The US needs to be in there, not with troops on the ground, but by aligning with available allies, of which I would put Israel kind of at the top of that list.